What's up, guys? Welcome back to Zenish. Today I have a very special guest that I am so excited to share. This conversation with Ashlie Price has been in the works for a long time. I feel like I say this about just about every guest, but we're all busy, we're all bad bitches, and it takes a lot of time and energy to get together, and I feel like the timing is always divine. But Ashlie and I have been friends for a long time. We'll dive into that a little more in the podcast episode. And I'm just so excited to share our journey together and the wisdom that we have cultivated and supported each other in cultivating. Ashlie will be Sunday service's guest teacher on Sunday, October 27th at Christina's Therapeutic Touch in Slidell. We meet from 10 a.m. to noon. We start with a yoga flow for the first 45 minutes to an hour, and then Ashlie will take over from there. Given that it is our spooky season, our witchy season, I'm really excited for what she has in store. We kind of trust the energy, trust the flow, and see what comes up. I know we discussed some ancestral work, so that could absolutely be on the table. If you're interested in joining, you can shoot me a text, shoot me a message, find me on Instagram in the links below. You can also Venmo if you're a regular. Your admission, that's $22 to $44 sliding scale to Karlie Lacoste via Venmo. I am so excited to share space with Ashlie, and if you enjoy this conversation, head on over to the Patreon. The link is also in the show notes below for an extended version of this podcast where we dive into the concept of sex magic. I love the Patreon. There's so much good stuff on there. We do a reading every week for the community. I post some guided meditations, and the extended versions of all of the podcast episodes are on the extended tier for only $6.66 a month. I'm very obsessed with the Patreon space right now. So I love you guys. Enjoy the episode. Ashlie, welcome to Zenish.
I finally made it.
I'm so excited to have you. I feel like it's been a long time coming.
Totally. Happy to be here, girl.
We've been in this space together a long time. Maybe we can start by sharing our journey, our friendship together.
Okay. Let me just check my calendar. 14 years.
Oh my God.
14 years. My little Karlie came to work for me at Crossgate.
Yep.
Yeah.
You were training me, and I was 19-ish. And I just remember us being a little shit show together. We had it figured out. Like, we were very confident in ourselves, but we were also in the throes, like we tend to stay, I think, huh?
I think so. Now that you mention it. Yeah. And I love that any season that we're in, we link in some capacity. So we started in the fitness realm, and then I followed you like a loyal puppy. Wherever you went.
We did hair for a little while.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're always finding similar medicine to share at the same time. So every time we link up, we can catch up and be like, what are you learning? What are you learning? And we're always meeting up in a way where we can feed each other.
Yeah.
Like right on fucking time.
Yep.
I love it. And I also so I feel like the last time we kind of reconnected, not that we ever disconnect, I never feel like there's this moment where we're not in each other's orbit, but I had just started following Layla Martin on YouTube, and literally no one else knew who she was. And so when we linked up, I don't know if you had already started her program or if I asked if you knew her or something, but I was like, holy shit.
I think it was when I was in Costa Rica at her retreat, and you had shared something from her in your group, and I'm like literally in front of her.
Yeah. And I remember you calling me after. You're like, I literally can't talk to anyone else about what went down this weekend. Can we? I don't know if we FaceTimed or what we did, so you could tell me about your experience.
I still can't believe that whole experience. It still sounds out of this world to me, and I was there.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I'm so happy to have you, and I'm excited to be having this conversation. I think it was last year, because I was just looking through pictures today of last year at this time, and I was preparing to leave the country, and
Yes.
we were in the thick. I don't even know what the program that I was going through was called, but I remember being in the thick of it and having to put it on pause so I could travel. And then I came back and finished the program with you. And at the same time, or like shortly after, I was going through it shortly after Jenna had finished up with you. So do you want to share a little bit about what that program entails?
Yeah, totally. So I had received my master's certification from Vita, which is the Vita Method, which is Layla's coaching program. And in that program, you get to choose 2 hyper focuses beyond the certification foundations. And one of them was in regards to female sexuality. And so that is something that I took Jenna through, and I want to be mindful of names to not, to not share if they don't want it shared. But then, I got to take you through that as well. And since then, I have developed it into a program called Sacral Rising, which is all about tapping into the womb space and allowing that energy just to expand throughout the body, and truly being able to recalibrate what being connected to your body really means. Not just in the sense of sexuality, but just in being in your body and what that feels like in safety. Me going into Layla's program, I had to do a lot of healing around being in my body, as I spent a lot of my life dissociated due to past history of sexual abuse and trauma. And I really wanted to form a new relationship from my neck down in a way that my body could belong to me, because I was healing from a belief that it belonged to other people first. So with this program that I have since, added on to, it really is with the utmost intention to create a space for my clients to tap into their bodies with absolute safety and what that means for them. And so they all come to me for different reasons, but at the end of it all, it's my hope that whoever is across from me truly feels like they can celebrate ownership of their container in a sacred way.
I have so much to say. When I first signed up for your program, it was funny because I knew who Layla Martin was. I knew what you had been studying. And I had expected it to be very focused on sex, which was such a small, narrow vision. But I was also very open. I had no idea. And I loved how through the whole program, like, being connected to your body, being in your body was so much more. Like, we think womb and we think sex, we think birth, we think life. But it was so much deeper than that. I felt like oftentimes we were using the body to address whatever came up in any capacity. Like, we were working through family wounds. And I had expected to a lot of, like, in connecting with the body, I was thinking that there would be a good bit focused around healing the Christian narrative that it came up around, that I grew up with, around your body and being sinful and like pleasure and all of that. And I do think that all of that was worked out while I was in there, and each person's journey is very unique. But so much of it was figuring out how to be embodied and figure out next steps, as opposed to only being a sexual or relationship oriented kind of experience.
Totally. Yeah, and it really is at the fundamentals of it all, learning how to trust yourself. And I think coming from a background, especially religious programming, where you're meant to trust in something beyond yourself, right, and deny yourself, and that's what we're taught to do, is deny ourselves all the time, and deny our flesh, and deny what we feel, and all of those things, it really is emergence of both. And I think that's really where I had to do my own reprogramming from, is understanding that it doesn't have to be separate, that I can be connected to God and source energy, but also understand that I am an extension of that, and there is so much wisdom in my body-mind container, and that any decision that I make or any healing that I was calling in really did invite me back into my own innate wisdom via my sensuality and my body's sensations, right? So it really was like this whole like rewiring of everything that I was taught, which was that, you know, pleasure was sinful, or the things that I felt weren't real, or my feelings weren't real, when they very much are. And it's very much connected with the extension of the energy that I'm connected to, you know, with God. And so...
Well, they say the womb space, the sacral, is the seat of the soul. And so when you are disconnecting from the body, you're also disconnecting from such a vital piece of yourself. Like, we're incarnated into a human body in this lifetime for a reason. And so the two cannot be at all separate. It's like learning to honor the human experience.
And I love that you said that. And I want to touch base on this because, you know, I do have clients that come to me that no longer have, you know, female parts, and they have a hard time connecting with their womb space and what it means for them. And so one of the things that I do let them know is like, okay, I understand that you are having a challenge connecting to your inner womb space, but can we connect to the part of you that did come from womb space?
Yeah.
Right? Because we are extension of that and creations of that space, right? And so, you know, even with working with men, it's the same thing, right? So
that's really
being
interesting.
able to come from that and relating to it in that way.
Yeah. How would that look, working in that way, like with the womb space, like outside of actually having a womb?
Yeah, visualization works very well in regards to that. Just channeling into the area. We can still put hand over our sacral space, whether you're, you know, female identifying or male identifying. You can put your hand over your womb space in that area anatomically and connect with that, or connect with the creative forces within your sacral. And
do you use the same verbiage when you're working with men?
Yeah. I mean, I do kind of feel out, you know, at what level that they're at in regards to the verbiage. You know, sometimes it really does speaking to just true anatomy. But I do love to partner, you know, everything with the soul and everything with the spirit. And so I always invite in a conversation to at least open their minds to it. And to be quite honest, the men that are attracted to me in the work are typically soul-centered when they come meet with me. And so it makes it a little easy to kind of segue.
I love that. I really do. Your visualization practices are so on point. I feel like that's such a gift for you to be able to guide someone into a visualization practice. And I think it's both. Like, there has to be an openness from the receiver, but also you as a facilitator have a gift of bringing someone into that space. Because I feel like more than anything, especially being virtual for all of our sessions, there was such a realness to, like, one of my favorite practices we've done together, and we've done this a couple of times together, both within that container and outside of the container, and being able to sit across from yourself and like have conversation with different versions of yourself. And the work there is so profound. Like, I am still connected and in conversation and communion with the pieces of myself that we uncovered together in the container.
Yeah, I want to celebrate you with that also, because it takes a lot of courage to go into those spaces. It really does. And that's one of the main things is consent with yourself. And we talk about consent a lot when you're puppy. We talk about consent a lot when it comes to you know, another person, and making sure that we're not crossing their boundaries. But when we're tapping into the body and we're meeting parts of ourselves that are at odds or at resistance, right? We have to ask permission. And that's one of the fundamental parts of visualization. Is it okay to be here? Is one of the first questions that I'm going to ask when you feel a sensation arising in your body. that is feeling resistant.
Sometimes there's a hard stop.
Mm-hmm.
There's a hard stop. Yeah.
We got to honor that because, you know, sadly enough, it's those parts of us that we have abandoned the most that are crying out now for our attention. And the last thing that we want to do is to tell it to go away or tell it that it's not allowed to be here, or even, not give it the opportunity to actually consent for us to even question it, because it's already been in that position of being dishonored before, right? And as I said that, I actually felt that in my body. Yeah.
I love that we're having this conversation. I feel like this is coming up so much, and something that I'm really starting to integrate into my own work and my own practices, both with other people and myself, and in relationship to other people, being able to recognize when a part of them is screaming for help, whether you're working with them and like facilitating and holding space, or you were just interacting with someone in a social setting. And I don't know, I feel like there's a part of me that's both able to have grace when I see some part of someone coming alive, for better or for worse. And there's a part of me that feels like I can recognize it and take a step back and be like, I can't do this. And same thing when it comes up in my own body and my own being. I had an incident this summer where a part of me got so activated, it was like 48 hours before I could actually sleep because I was so turned all the way up. And I took the time to ask myself what part of me was struggling so much, because logically, I pulled out all my practices, all the tools I had to try and calm myself down. And it made me realize that a part of me was really, really struggling being in the situation that I was in. And I sat with her and was like reminding her that we're safe, that everything's okay. But she wasn't ready to feel safe. Like, she wanted to be out of that situation. And even though logically I knew I was okay and I wanted to calm my nervous system, that part of me also just, I literally couldn't do it. I just had to remove myself from the situation. And it's interesting how those pieces come online and get so loud and so alert. I think they're there both to protect us and to remind us of where the work still is.
Totally, and totally. There's a book that is fundamental to trauma still being in the body, and it's Vessar Bandicog's The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah, it's a real eye-opener in regards to that, how we try to logic our way out of the wisdom that the body is bringing to us and what it is needing in the moment. And yes, a lot of our parts do try to keep us safe. There's Dr. Dick Schwartz, who has a book, No Bad Parts, and he talks about parts work a lot in your internal family systems and how when these things come online to try to protect us, right? And in those protector parts, sometimes they get their message out in a nice, graceful way, but other times they're fighters. So we kind of have to
navigate. It's hard. It's messy. It's messy, especially when you're in relationship with other people, whether it's partnerships or friendships. All of us have these pieces and parts. And so, it's difficult to communicate what you need. It's difficult to hold space when someone's pieces and parts are also screaming, because a lot of times they activate your pieces and parts. And so being in relationship, period, across the board, friendships, lovers, doesn't matter, siblings, it is hard. It's a constant practice.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're speaking to that as well, because relationships really are mirrors to the things that are already in us. And so when I'm working with couples, that's one of the things that I have to tell them is just, we have such a way of telling people, you made me feel XYZ. And though that can feel very true, especially in the heat of a moment, I always have to question that. Like, did they really make you feel that way? Do they have the capability to turn that switch on in your body, in your emotions? Or did your belief about what was said or done cause an emotion that felt that way? So a lot of this work is about personal responsibility.
Discernment.
And knowing what is ours and what is theirs, and not intertwining the two. And relationships, that's what they're here for. They're going to bring out the joy, the happiness, the peace, the calm, the chaos, the stress, the anxiety, depending on the person, right? But they can't give us something that wasn't already there. We already have those emotions within our body container. It's who we're around that conjures up those feelings, right? Nobody can give them or take them away. It's the same thing with love, right? When we have love for somebody, we're essentially having love for ourselves because that emotion was already there. Nobody can give that to you and nobody can take it away. So when it comes to situations that cause heartache and stress and pain, we have to remind ourselves that yes, I can feel the stress, I can feel the pain, but I also know in this container there's also love and joy and peace, and I can feel both.
In order to feel both, there has to be a level of vulnerability too. That's hard to access. And I feel like the container, that is a prerequisite. Like, it's something to be understood. There has to be a level of vulnerability in order for any of it to be worth it, period. Whether you're in program with you, going through holding space together with myself, being in friendship, being in partnership, being in relationship, like, you can only meet other people as deeply as you've met yourself. And so how vulnerable and real are you willing to get with yourself? And then how vulnerable and real are you willing to show up in relationship? And that requires the real messy.
That's right. Mask off in your relationships, right? I just did a message yesterday about de-armoring, which is a part of the program that I have with it. But, you know, I was talking about, someone came up to me yesterday when I was at the gym. You know, you see the same people every morning. It's like, hi, how you doing? Hey, you know, how's your day going? And the automatic, what do you say?
Good. I'm fine.
Exactly. Okay. It's what you say, because number one, it would take too long to tell you, what's
actually
really
going
going on in this shit show, right? And two, do you even want to hear it? No, not really. You're trying to get your workout and go. You're being polite, right? But I had someone come up to me yesterday, and they were like, "Are you good? Is everything okay?" No, essentially, they're checking in with the same type of question, but I felt so exposed in that millisecond of that question, and I'm like, can they see?
Yeah.
What are they seeing behind this mask that I'm putting on?
Like, were you sincere? Were you like, okay, someone sees me right now?
I felt extremely jarred. You know, I compared it to Scooby-Doo at the end of the episodes when they catch the villain and they pull the mask off. I was like, you see me? Yes. I ran to the locker room.
Yeah.
But it sat with me all day.
Oh, yeah.
It affected me all day because I'm like, okay, I'm trying to put on this positive forward, facade, exactly. And I felt like I was seen for who I was in that moment, and it felt extremely vulnerable. And I was starting to think about all the ways that we armor ourselves up every day. And think about armor in the sense of old school medieval times, right? You protect yourself from head to toe so that you don't freaking die. Right? It's a survival tactic. But how many times do we armor up to protect our feelings from being exposed or protecting people from seeing who we really are, right? So we armor ourselves up, not just physically, but emotionally. We tell ourselves that our feelings aren't real. We stuff it down. We have sensations in our body going crazy. We pull out all the tools to try to make it go away, right? To try to armor ourselves to protect ourselves, because in those moments in the body, it feels like a threat, right? So when we are de-armored, what we're essentially doing is we're allowing those stuck tension emotional points in the body to finally move. But the key word with this, there's nothing wrong with that. We want those emotions to move because we know that stuck emotions causes pain. Not just physical pain, emotional pain. It stifles us. It stunts our growth, right? But the key word is safety. Where can I be safe enough to de-armor and lay it down? And it has to be done very carefully. You do it with people that you absolutely trust.
Yeah, not everyone else, which is, I think, a lesson. I'm going to speak for myself, but I wouldn't be surprised if you could agree that we've learned the hard way. Just like showing up. And I feel like as really powerful women, which I consider both of us to be, and the majority of the people in this community to be too. And it's not always easy to show up in that way because it requires a level of being seen that isn't terribly easy, especially, I don't know, I always feel like where we live, it's a little bit harder to do that. It's not celebrated in the same way it might be in other places, and I haven't lived anywhere else, so I don't know. But I feel like it takes the right kind of partner and friendships to actually be able to hold what it is that we show up with.
Right.
Because it's a lot.
Right. That's why we call it a sacred space. A sacred space and a sacred container. And you set that up. You have a gift for setting up a sacred space so beautifully where people can come into here and de-armor and lay it all down. And that is truly the intention of the work, right? So that people don't have to walk around with this heavy ass, like, sword and shield all day long and fighting off people who they perceive to be threats to seeing who they really are.
I had this moment with myself. This was a while ago because when I started practicing energy work for myself, I had an amazing teacher who was very reverent of the work and made it very clear to me how important it was to protect yourself and to have boundaries. And so before I ever started working with other people in this capacity and holding space, I made sure that I had a fail-proof boundary around me to be able to hold space. And then you also learn that through heartbreak, what an energetic boundary is, what a spiritual boundary is. But then I had this moment where I realized that when the boundary is so fortified, like, you can't receive. You can't receive downloads. You can't receive insights. You can't receive real intimate partnership. Like, I think there are levels to it. I think there are different types of boundaries and armor, but there has to be also not just when you were speaking about de-armoring and releasing things. If that armor, if that shield is so tight, how can you let go too? I feel like those kinds of things will just circulate and stagnate and find new homes within yourself if there isn't also this element of release, which requires, whether we're talking about like in conversation or spiritually or energetically, there has to be a vulnerability, like a softness.
Yeah, totally. So how do you create the space to soften up, right? And so it's a twofold thing, right? We talk about dualities in the spiritual realm all the time, and it always is. There has to be, right? We don't know about the need for boundaries until they've been crossed.
Right. And then they're so fortified, and then you're like, wait, I'm lonely in here.
Yeah, we need actually a swinging door in this wall.
Exactly.
Right? I love that one. I'm staring at a door here. But yeah, we can't have solid walls all the way around. We need the open door to know when to let things in and when to keep things out. And that's the duality of a boundary. It protects what's within, but it also, keeps the dangers out, right? But we need to have that discernment to know what can we let in and what needs to leave at any given moment, right? Oh, yes, I was going somewhere else with this. I know, we get in such a flow. But the same thing with creating softness and safety, it has to happen internally first. Before we can even allow ourselves to soften up in front of another soul or another individual, like, we have to be able to do that within ourselves first. And that is the work across the board. We're always working from the inside out. But I'm not going to lie. A lot of past me wanted to be saved so much for anybody other than myself. Because I didn't trust her. She made dumbass decisions. Like, anybody but Ashlie, please.
I know. I
Right?
feel that.
But that's not what we're called to do. It's always inwards first, right? And then by way of the way we hold ourselves and honor ourselves and be that true sacred container for ourselves, right? The temple of who we are, then we become an energetic match to things outside of us, and they're by nature magnetically drawn to us. I think that's part of our relationship and how we are,
I
right?
think so.
Because you and I did not talk spirituality in the early days. I think we might have hit on religion a couple times, but it wasn't anything like this.
No, when we met, I was still going to Mass daily in the Catholic Church.
Yeah. We didn't hit on that. But as we evolved spiritually, magnetically, we just keep
I know.
We just keep coming
We're
together.
like, that's a light. She gets it. She gets it.
I think that's the beauty of true friendship and soul friendships, right? And I always say, anybody that I connect to in this realm, we all know of each other, even if we've never met each other, right? Your soul knows, right? So I love that. I digress.
I love talking about this inner world, and I was glad that you brought it up because that was going to be my next point, and like really meeting yourself. And I also think that in the work that you do and the container that you hold to really go inward, we're talking so much about being vulnerable and open to other relationships and partnerships and like magnetizing things to you, but also it creates space for you to meet God, which is what we're all really looking for. That purpose, that light, whatever God looks like to you, I feel like it resides within each of us. And it's hard to find when we have packed all of the experiences and emotions and feelings and energy so tightly that we can't move and feel. There's no room for that light to shine, and then you end up just giving it away.
Yeah, no, I feel that as well. And I think with any of this, a lot of my times that I connect with God are really in moments of absolute stillness, of the nothingness, where there's nothing to audibly listen to. There's nothing that my eyes are open to. It's true, just inward focus.
Just breathing.
In the nothingness of it all, it is there. And I think even biblically, it talks about like the small, still voice, right? And how many times we cannot channel into that because of the external distractions that call our attention out of our body. Right.
It's hard. It's a balance. It is a fucking balance. You're talking about duality. It's such a big theme, obviously always and forever. But really, I'm also I have a lot of Gemini in my chart, and that is the twins. I see all sides to everything all the fucking time. And it makes it hard I feel like there's a little truth in everything. It makes it hard to decide where to go or what to do. I think that's why it's important to be so present, so grounded, so connected to yourself, because you can acknowledge that all realities exist, but which one am I choosing with this next step forward? Where is my soul calling me to go?
Yeah.
Have you seen Dark Matter on Apple TV? You should watch it. It's so good. It's about like all realities being possible. It's very sci-fi, but it's super, super good. It's making me think of that.
I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah. But yeah. So what are your projects right now? What are you working with right now?
I'm in this season of what I would call to be on the verge.
Ooh.
Last time I was in an on the verge season was probably in 2019. So my corporate job is ending.
I briefly saw something about that.
And I have no idea what that's calling me into. I am definitely following my soul in just honing into what I'm passionate about, right? And what I'm truly passionate about is my work, right? Whatever that looks like in the long term, I have no idea. But yeah, I'm focusing in on that, on whatever.
Wherever you're called.
Wherever I'm called to be, yeah.
I know my prayer, I would say the last 6 or 7 months has been, how can I serve? Because I feel surrendered. I don't know what to do or where to go, which isn't true. I do know what to do and where to go, but we want to see so far away. That actually came up in meditation for me this morning, like to zoom out and to just trust the experience of being exactly where you're meant to be and following that call of your soul. It's kind of like a free fall period where you're like, I do know what the fuck I'm doing. I have no idea where this is going to take me, but I know that I'm good at what I do. I'm passionate about what I do, and there's no one else that can do what I do like I do it.
That's
so
right.
Where does that fit?
That's right.
Where does that fit?
I have no idea.
I know.
I have no idea. I have really interesting opportunities that are all coming up right now. I don't know how or why this happened, but I manifested a free vacation to the Bahamas. So I'm like, okay, where do I want to fit that in? I have clients that I have not heard from in a while just hit me up randomly this week, like, we need to come back into play. I'm like, let's do it. And then my mentor, aside from Layla, Alyssa Nobriga, she invited me to her home next month to participate in a retreat at no cost. And I'm like,
Ashlie, yes.
Yes. So Santa Monica next month.
Yes.
So I'm living for it. And I feel like my relationship with God right now is like, how much can you trust me?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, well,
it's kind of like, I don't know if you feel this way, but it's kind of this season of, what do I have to lose? Like, I've committed to this path, so I'll go where you lead.
Oh, that's it. And it's true faith walking. And I feel like I have like a blindfold on, and I'm like,
yeah, here I go. It's kind of like trusting the vibe too, because I feel like when you're used to being, when the heavy is always so much louder than the light, especially when we're thinking about the past and narratives, like rewriting, being aware, I shouldn't say rewriting, but being aware of the narratives that I spin for myself. And so really, and we worked on this a lot too, understanding that you are worthy and that happiness and joy is an option. And so when you are blindly like following, you're like, I am moving towards joy and lightness and peace and service.
That's
and
right.
So I'm holding on, and I will go where you tell me to go, trusting that that is what I'm walking into, as opposed to calling in all of the things from the past that have been hard. And I feel like it's easy to sink back into, is that where I'm going? It's the trust. It's trusting yourself and trusting that higher power, that divine, that we truly believe guides us.
And getting those resistant parts of me on board, because there's parts of me that are just like, no.
Absolutely not. Have you lost your mind?
Exactly. I could still feel her. She's in my jaw.
Oh, it's a little jaw massage.
Yeah.
That's fear. I've always heard that fear is the jaw, which I think is normal.
So we just try to comfort her along. It's like, you know what? We're not going to throw you out the car, but you got to sit in the back seat. You cannot drive.
Yeah. Put on some music. Calm down. Do you need a mushroom? Like, what do you need?
That's it. Just have her go into a dimension. We'll wake you when we get there.
Yes, exactly. She wakes up like, what the fuck? That's funny. Okay, so before we close this and move on to our extended version, which I'm excited about, I've been asking everyone if they have a product or a service that they're really living for right now, something that's really serving you.
Like me personally, something that
yeah,
I'm
or
doing
something
for me?
that's worked for you, like something that's coming up for you when I ask that question.
That is a great question.
I am not currently using this. I'll kind of give you an example of something that's coming to mind for me right now. But anyone who's curious about astrology or really any of this realm, there's these workbooks. I don't know if you ever heard of Spirit Daughter.
Yes.
But she offers these astrology workbooks. I don't think they're very expensive. It's so many dollars a month, and every month you get a download of a workbook to work through. It was a really good way to understand the cyclical nature of astrology and the signs and the difference between a new moon and a full moon. So that's a service that served me well for a few years before I stopped. I still follow her online because she has so much wisdom to offer, but after you've done the workbooks a few times, you kind of have, that foundation.
Totally hear you. Yeah, nothing currently. Last year I was doing the manuscripting method.
I remember that.
And I really enjoyed that a lot because it is chock full of information and ritual and just self-care things to go along with the energy. So I really did appreciate that at that time.
I love that.
Yeah.
Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, good. You can come find me at Instagram. My handle is at the Ashlie Price. Now, my mom had to be different and spelled Ashlie Ashlie.
I love it. I love it.
But Price is pretty standard. So at the Ashlie Price, come follow me there. Or you can go to ashlieprice.com. Yeah, would love to have you.
You can find Ashlie and I continuing this conversation that I am going to title Sex Magic and just see what happens from there on the Patreon, which I'm really, really excited about. So we love you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and head on over to that space for us. Bye.